There you go.
Hello and welcome to the Rangers News YouTube channel. My name is Cameron Willis, and once again, I'm joined by Jordan Carlisle and James Black. We're back for another kind of roundup of the week in the world of Rangers. Quite a few things have happened. There's been one football match and disappointingly no game over the weekend, but there's still plenty to talk about, I think. We're better to start with the biggest kind of talking point of the week, which was obviously after Rangers defeated Royal Antwerp in quite like another frenetic Europa League match. We drew Slavia Prague in the kind of last 16, so we've reached that for the second time. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of get your guys' thoughts on the draw, and if you think it's a winnable draw, if you know anything about Slavia Prague, and yeah, what do you think it'll be like compared to Royal Antwerp? I'll go to you first, Jordan. How do you feel about the draw?
I think it's a positive one for Rangers. It'll probably be a step up in terms of what happened with Royal Antwerp. I think you could see at stages that they had talent in their team, but they were far too open and lacked things in certain areas that maybe other top European teams would have. I think going into the draw, there was a couple of massive teams going into it that you would think would be a real challenge going into it. Obviously, seeing United draw AC Milan, it showed that there's a potential for massive ties out there. I think there's other better potential ones like Molde and Granada and that sort of stuff. I think they would have been better. Slavia are doing really well. I think they're well clear at the top of the league. They've got 55 points, which probably gives them a few staunch points going into it as
I
well.
was going to say that.
I've had a wee sort of scan through their squad list. Obviously, we'll do a bit more when it comes to actually previewing it and stuff. No names that really stand out. There's a guy Stanku scored a couple at the weekend. I think I've seen him play for Romania a couple of times against Northern Ireland. It's a decent player. But other than that, no, big names standing out certainly. But yeah, so I think it's sort of a middle one that's very winnable. It could have been a lot worse, could have been a little bit better, but it's one that the Rangers definitely fancy themselves going into, I think.
What about you, James? What did you think when Slavia Prague's name was pulled out the hat?
A decent draw, at least on paper. I don't know enough about them to kind of really say one way or another, kind of anything about kind of what kind of game it will be, but it could have been worse. And that's kind of on base on is it wasn't Man United, it wasn't Milan, it wasn't Roma. So in that context, it's a decent draw, but I don't follow Czech football enough to even pretend to know the first thing about this mob.
But I completely agree. I think that it's a good draw simply because when you look at who you could have got, probably Molde would have been the best one, but we'll just have to play the winner of Molde and Granada in the quarters. Like, but nah, I mean, by all means, from what I can see online, that they're quite a well-respected team. The managers, it seems like a bit of a character as well, and they've got a 19-year-old striker up front, a boy called Abdullah Sima, scored against Leicester. He's been linked with a move there, and he moved to West Ham because Thomas Suchek came from Slavia Prague, went to West Ham. But I am not used. I haven't seen enough of them. But actually, it looks like an interesting tie. But for me, it looks like two kind of quite exciting teams at this level playing each other, and I think
Yeah,
it'll
and the
be.
Leicester thing, just you mentioned that, just
Aye.
because I've seen kind of a lot says that that they must be a really good team. They bet Leicester. End of the last time Brendan Rodgers won a knockout game in Europe.
Mate, he's never won one. I wrote a story at that the weekend. He's never won a knockout round tie. And for somebody that's so lauded in Scotland, he's Europe really is the guy's Achilles heel. But I don't know. I mean, I think it'll be tough. Like I say, like Jordan says, we'll go into it in more detail and we'll find out more about it and about them. But I think it's winnable. I think that's the big thing. I think it's a tie that we shouldn't be scared of and a tie that we can kind of win. But I what the just kind of to round off the Europa League thing as well. What was your kind of thoughts in the Antwerp match and how that went, Jordan? Because me and James did a kind of review of it, but we've not heard your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I just thought I was relatively comfortable. I think going into the game that in terms of a Rangers perspective that they'd be able to get over the line in some way. Actually, um, you know, carrying the advantage into the game, knowing that they would have to come out the blocks and go for it. It was pretty mental again, wasn't it? In stages at least, the game. But I mean, you couldn't really the Patterson, the whole Patterson thing was absolutely mental. Like the concept of him, because we sort of had in England before it that he might be in the squad, didn't we? And that he might throw him in just in case. And Balogun was tortured in the first half. Like Jordan Lukaku had him absolutely on toast. And I think I'd sort of thought that before the game, that surely they're going to attack down that way. Surely they're going to put a bit more emphasis on that. And it looked like that could be a problem. That could, by halftime, that looked like that could be the undoing of Rangers if there was to be one. And obviously, you bring the wee man on, and and he scores straight afterwards, and he loved it. Like, because he's obviously sitting there a week before, thinking I might have done myself in here. Like, I might not actually play for this club again, or you would certainly be thinking the worst. And then a week later, he's scoring, which it's just a mental turnaround. And then obviously, really put a bit of gloss on it in the closing stages. So I think Rangers were clearly the better team across the two legs, even if defensively there's some questions. And I think there's maybe some questions in general, because in Europe, or in terms of European competition, because the record domestically has been unbelievable all season. But I think maybe when against teams with slightly different styles and maybe slightly more quality in the final third, they've conceded quite a few so far in Europe. So that's something to maybe address going into the next game. But I think Rangers were clearly the better team and deserve to get through. And it's a big achievement getting to the last 16 again, especially, when you compare it to what Celtic have been able to do in recent years and things like that. So, Rangers are sort of flying the flag for Scotland, haven't they? And they have been doing that for a couple of years now. So a really good result.
Is that defensive thing? What are you going into the Slavia Prague game, James?
It does. And part of the thing that kind of with some of the goals in Europe is I don't think Alan McGregor's covered himself in glory in quite a few of them. I think there's been quite a few times, and not just the Antwerp game, going back through the group stages in the previous games where I think he could do a lot better. Whether that's because we're playing against shite every week domestically and then going and playing better teams and he's kind of getting caught out cold or whatever. But I do think a lot of it is our own failings rather than, we're playing fantastic forward lines who are tearing us to pieces. We're getting guys caught in wrong areas, players caught out of position, guys losing their men, goalkeepers who sometimes forget how to dive. And it's something that Rangers can fix on their own without going into games and going, well, we need to be much more cautious at X, Y, and Z for the opposition.
Interesting. So I mean, it's next week, so we'll have another kind of roundup before it. I think we'll go into more depth on Slavia Prague and that. But before then, we will be playing 2 Scottish Premiership matches and can potentially win the title this weekend, which is a wild thought. But so the first one is Livingston tomorrow. He touched on Nathan Patterson there. Steven Gerrard says that Liam Balogun, I think, has got a quad issue. Does he come back in? Does the great Redeemer come back and play and start the match against Livingston, Jordan?
I think I did a piece the other day or yesterday saying that I thought he should come in anyway, regardless of whether, before the news on Balogun. I think Balogun did do a good job in the first leg against Antwerp and also in the home game against Dundee United, but he was exposed. Just clearly uncomfortable. He's obviously an athletic big guy. He's not slow by any means for centre back, but just not used to being caught in wide channels and having to defend out there. I think Patterson, that was spoken about him before, is not the finished article. When Rangers are playing Livingston, you're not going to have someone like Jordan Lukaku, maybe with the quality of him to take on your full back, but I think you'd still rather have a natural right back there while you still have him. So I think some people still won't agree with the fact that he was in the squad for the Europa League game. And I think I think it's a really interesting one because I do think it's a very quick redemption in terms of, for all 3 of the players. Zungu coming off the bench for a wee token bit at the end, sure, he can believe it either. I think it's a very quick redemption. But it's obviously slightly strange with the SFA bans that are likely to come, but I think it's been very quickly accepted. But at the same time, now that that's out the way and he comes off the bench, and scores, and you have all the stuff around, there's literally no reason now for him not to play against Livingston. If he's going to play in the Europa League, he can play in the Premiership unless he's banned, and this is probably going to be the last game he's eligible for before the end of the season. So, or at least for a while. So while he's fit, available, and Tab isn't there, I think he should play.
James, I see you shaking your head there. Do you think?
I think he will play, but I think the whole thing's made Gerrard look really weak. I think it's made him look. When you look at how they reacted to the first two players who were banned by the club pending investigation and everything else, and effectively booted out the door at the first opportunity, the way that this one's been handled, and admittedly some of it has been out of Gerrard's hands, with Tavernier being injured, and Balogun getting injured against Antwerp in midweek, but it very much looks like they've treated one set of players one way and the other set of players another way. And for me, it gives the impression that players have got that wee bit more freedom to rip the piss. And depends on how it goes. They might get away with it, they might not. Depends what kind of mood the club's in.
I don't know about that. I mean, see the Jones and Edmondson thing. You don't know the inner details of it. And I can remember there was training ground pictures where they played like five-a-sides, and Gerrard's got his arm round Jones and all that. And I think Jones and Edmondson
match day squad after it.
But I think they were underperforming. I think even when Edmondson went to Derby, he said that the situation had knocked his confidence. I don't think it's a case of Rangers saying you're getting frozen out. I just think it was a case of his players in better form. And I think with the other guys, obviously there's a necessity to play them now, but there was no necessity to take Zungu off the bench. Do you know what I mean? But I think that insinuates that we're going to buy him. I mean, I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe there wasn't. You don't know anything about the agreement, because he signed a new contract there, and then maybe it was a way of Rangers delaying the money. I don't know, but he's taken him off the bench for 10 minutes, Europa League match, which is obviously not essential. But in terms of the difference, I don't think it's fair to make that judgment call. Me personally, I think Steven Gerrard managed both situations very well. I think the club did as well. They come out and they led the narrative. It was starting to get a bit out of control before the second one, I think, with XYZ happening. But I don't know. I think it's hard to say, but I don't think. I mean, I think since the beginning we've taken kind of opposite stances on this anyway, James. I'm maybe not as hard line, and you're a wee bit more authoritative on it. But it is what it is. For me, I just trust the club. But so, if it was you, you wouldn't have Patterson coming back in.
No. Where's his punishment? Where's the consequences? Where's the because regardless of how anybody wants to cut this up, and at the end of the day, the players were fined by the police. They've dragged Rangers' name through the mud. They have attracted huge amounts of unwanted press attention, and by all accounts, you can do that, and you're right back in the squad at the first opportunity. That doesn't sit right with me at all.
I don't think it's like that. I mean,
that is what's happened. That's what we know has happened. The players were fined.
For me, that's not my interpretation of what's happened. I mean, fair enough, you're entitled to your opinion and stuff, but it looks like the guys have genuinely apologised. I can't imagine Nathan Patterson's going to be a.
But if they've genuinely, Edmondson and Jones didn't genuinely apologise.
The thing is, it definitely is different. It's also difficult because yes, maybe you don't know exact details, but I think what's been clear is that they've, Gerrard and the club have condemned the players, completely for attending the two different things. I think it is slightly different because it's very hard to compare it. If, Jones, so Edmondson wasn't playing anyway. I think he played once.
Jones started in the 3 games before he was suspended. He'd been in all 3. Jones, well, see, so Jones, so Edmondson's out of the picture a little bit, but I think Jones is one where he wasn't always he was in and out, has been since he came to the club, but had Barker, Kent, and say if Barker and Kent were both injured, then once he finished his isolation period, that's when you would actually tell if they're handling this any differently, because I think when it comes to on Thursday night, who would have actually played right back in a knockout European tie if there's no Tav and no Jack?
no Balogun and no Patterson. Like, who would he have played? So I think there's a balance between actively. So Rangers have a player available, and if you don't play him, you could leave yourself very, very vulnerable and get knocked out of Europe, and then that adds to it even more. All the unnecessary stuff. But I do get it as strange that it is literally just serve your isolation period and come back in. But I feel like it's a combination of circumstances with injuries to other key players in a position that Rangers are already short in that has led to it. So when it comes to Wednesday night, if Balogun's not fit enough to make the squad, and you still know Jack and still know who plays right back, who does he start at right back?
It's cutting off the nose to spite your face. You know, that it's like it's damaging the team for the sake of making
it's taking a kid that's played 5 games as a pro out of the team, really damaging the team that much.
Well, not in general, but in this circumstance, yeah.
I think so. Great. But I mean, I think the whole thing was overblown. Like I said that at the time, and I think it's just the nature of the game up here. And obviously it's out of order and it was unacceptable. And God knows what excuses they had for it, but you move on, you move on. Think shit happens when you party naked, like, you know what I mean? That's what people say. But so you move on, and I mean, for me, I'm not going to hold it against him. I don't hold it against Jones and Edmondson either. In fact, I've quite been enjoying the staunchness of George Edmondson on loan at
I find that childish as fuck.
Refusing to go in the huddle.
I'm not going to stand in a huddle and I'm going to disrespect my teammates.
I know, but
it's a weird one. I think I understand why people love it up here. I'd probably be a bit raging if I was Rooney. I'd be like, I'm backing this guy to start my team, and he's not even joining Lincoln Arms.
It's not so much the act of not doing the huddle; it's the outrage afterwards that I love. It's just how raging people get about it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's funny.
See if it was the other way around. See if Rangers done something particular before games, and a player says, "I'm not doing that because I'm on loan for X, Y, or Z." We would be spitting feathers.
There's no doubt about that. To be fair, yeah,
that's the way it works. That's the name of the game.
What about Jones's goal, by the way?
I've never seen it. I've not
seen it. Watch lower league English football, mate.
Proper, like, just giving it to him in space on the left, step over, cuts inside, just laces through it, like swerves straight in the top corner, like keeper nowhere near it. Then he did his Real celebration, which was very interesting.
Maybe it's his and because they were pals. It's that strange combination of friends on you.
Yeah.
Morelos and Jones, but interesting. It's not going to be the end of the COVID thing either because the bans are still going to come. Apparently, no idea what's going on there. But eventually, they're going to get banned. I think. I don't know. Well, that's the assumption that's been made.
It's still roughly the same amount of time it took for Jones and Edmondson to get banned. It was like 18 days for them getting caught to them getting cited. So.
Okay. But why is that a thing? Like, why can't they just get a few people in the room and say, look, this is a massive deal. We're going to debate it now, a week after it's happened and decide it.
You're going to have 10 days right off the start with them isolating for one. So you can't that first 10-day period. I
think you're better waiting anyway, because then you can take the
then you can get them games while other people are injured.
It's worked in our advantage, man. So the Livingston match, how he's feeling about it. Obviously, they're coming off the back of a 1-0 kind of League Cup defeat. Their form has kind of fallen off the edge of a cliff a wee bit ever since kind of David Martindale's kind of explosive start. How are you feeling about this one, James? How do you feel about it?
I think the David Martindale experiment has quickly came to its natural conclusion. And I said at the start, the guy's not a manager. The guy can get players to run through brick walls for him, but tactically he hasn't a Scooby what he's doing. You just watch that cup final at the weekend. Marvin Bartley is his left winger. Now, if Rangers drop points to that this week, there's something seriously amiss. Because he's not a tactical genius by any stretch of the imagination. He's not even particularly tactically very good. He just gets players hyped up. So, I mean, I think they've failed to win their last 5 or 6 games. They're woefully Sunday Cup final. So, yeah, given the form Rangers have been on, anything less than a comfortable win, and there's some serious questions.
Tough place to go, but
I think that's Hampden is, Livingston playing at Hampden is probably the exact opposite of where it is that they thrive in terms of tight artificial to massive open real pitch and on a big occasion like that, and they don't have the sort of home comforts. I think it's sometimes like there's a few times Rangers went there and done very well and made it fairly comfortable, but in general it is a tough place to go. Yeah, I think it was kind of ridiculous at one point when they were on. I don't know how long the unbeaten run was. It was excellent.
We had 11 unbeaten, I'm sure it was.
It was
13 unbeaten, I think it was.
It was a brilliant run, and I saw the club, people getting really carried away, being like, they're coming for Aberdeen, coming for Hibs or whatever, and like European football's a certainty and all this sort of stuff. And it's just like, it is still Livingston, who have a very limited budget and also have a limited squad. So like that's unrealistic to expect them to just be like, oh, they've gone 10 unbeaten, so no one's going to beat them. Football just doesn't work like that. So it's not surprising to see there being a dip of some kind. But yeah, I still expect it to be hard. I think, mentally they'll be down a little bit, probably a bit drained after the weekend. Something that they've been building up to for a long time was a big chance for them that they didn't quite manage to capitalise on. But I think they'll still make it difficult, and it's never easy. I don't think Rangers, in terms of getting started on pitches like that as well, in terms of playing out from the back and things like that. So I just Rangers should have far too much quality. But we've seen in the past that it's been difficult, so they'll need to work hard, probably start strongly, and if there's an early goal, then it should be a breeze, I think.
That's my thoughts on it. If we have an early goal, I think Livingston heads will go down. I think it'll be hard for them to get back into the match, but it's like we drew there earlier in the season after obviously they were under the management of Gary Holt. But actually, James, I think I'm a wee bit inclined to agree with you with regards to David Martindale. He's obviously in the experience. He's a club man, and he done well when he came in. But I think that this is the real acid test in management, is when things start to go wrong. So he's in a really difficult patch for himself now, and he'll go the season, I think, anyway, but because they'll definitely stay up. But I think it'll be a real test of his credentials. But the guys came back from plenty before, so maybe this will be the kind of making of him. But
this plastic pitch thing, I just want to touch on that a bit, because why do we set ourselves up to go to these places and think we're going to drop points because it's a plastic pitch? So I've got the Premiership table in front of me just now, right? There's 3 teams in the Premiership playing plastic. Mm-hmm. Livingston, Kilmarnock, Hamilton Accies, right? Kilmarnock have won 5 at home. Livingston have won 5 at home, drawn 3, lost 6 at Amundvale, or the Tony Macaroni, or the Spaghetti Head, or whatever shitey name you want to give it. Kilmarnock have won 4 at home, drawn 3, lost 8. Hamilton Accies have won 2, drawn 4, lost 8. Wait, go and tell me why we go to these places and go, oh, it's a plastic pitch.
But we actually do drop points. We drop points at 2 of them.
We dropped points at them. We dropped points at Hamilton last time we were there.
We've dropped more points in grass this season.
I mean, I
but there are also more grass pitches.
Says drop points at Easter Road, so we should be worried about grass pitches.
But like Jordan says, there's 3/4 of the pitches aren't plastic. Yeah. So I mean, we drop points on the pitches. That's why people are scared of them.
I think it's
have lost more games than they've won on them, so they're not getting any real advantage for them.
But it's also different. I think that's what Kashinya found out in it when you talk when it comes to, it was Andy Halliday was talking about when he came in and was like, oh, we're going to play Motherwell at the weekend. Here's how they played against Kilmarnock. So we'll set up to play against them like that, and teams don't play like that against Rangers. They play different ways, and they can use the pitches, the artificial surfaces, and the fact that Rangers can't zip it around the way they would like to their advantage. So that's why Hamilton aren't a great team, are very, very limited, and if they go toe-to-toe with other sides, then there's every chance to get picked off. That's why they're at the bottom of the league. But they're capable of doing better jobs.
Decade than they have at Hamilton.
I mean, that was a freak result rather than a reflection of the situation.
Why is the 0-0 at Livingston not a freak result?
Because it's happened multiple times before. We've lost there, dropped points there before as well. I think it's just to argue otherwise than Rangers not liking or struggling or play differently. Don't play differently.
But I'm saying that we give ourselves this mental block by going, oh, it's a plastic pitch. I think it's a plastic pitch. The pitch is a cop-out of an excuse.
I think we
can echo getting benefits from them. So to think that we are going to struggle because it's a plastic pitch is it's given us this kind of and we don't need a but because we've played 30 games and no lost one yet. So
I'm not saying that Rangers are
I think Rangers should still beat
difficult.
Livingston, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that I think what fans are doing is two-pronged. I think the first one is we've dropped points and we've had poor results on plastic pitches before. And the second one is that we're just echoing what the management team and the players are saying, because they are always consistent about how this is frustrating, etc. And whilst I kind of get what you're saying, I do think it's a bit different.
Younger players don't. So older players don't like them. Most younger players couldn't care less about plastic pitch because they've grown up playing on them. So like, see your guys at your Nathan Pattersons. They've been playing on these pitches since they were 8, 9, 10-year-old. So they don't have the same objection that a Steve Davis might at 35, 36.
It's another reason why he's got to start them on, isn't it? Despite all his indiscretions.
Give him the armband as well.
Let's start Chris McKee ahead of Morelos as well.
Sorry, man?
Let's start Chris McKee ahead of Morelos. He's going up.
But Morelos is injured, so it's different. But yes, we'll see the Livingston game. So we win that, and it takes it to the weekend, and then Celtic are playing Dundee United, and we are playing St Mirren. If we win that, Celtic drop points, we win the title. If not, it goes to Parkhead. Personally, I think both teams will win the game. We'll come back with a preview of St Mirren match. There's no point looking that far ahead because anything can happen. A day is a long time in football, as they say. So there's no point in us looking towards that before we played Livingston. But ahead of the weekend, do you think this is the weekend, lads? Do you think we should be gearing up for a title party this Sunday?
Yes, because you're going to choke at Tannadice on Sunday.
What about you, Jordan?
I don't know. See, I don't really know how I feel, to be quite honest, going into it. I think it would be a strange way to win it. I also think it's just so set up, surely, the whole season, the way the whole thing has gone. I just feel like I don't really believe in fate, but I think if you did, it would be happening at Celtic Park. So I don't really know. That's the thing. I don't know, because it's totally in Celtic's hands, and it could be down to that. Come down to that Sunday. And I mean, they have slipped. That's the thing. They've shown that they can slip up anywhere this year, home, away, anything. And yeah, Dundee United have been limited at times, but they showed a good bit at Ibrox of the players who can score, and they're capable of causing the upset, and arguably have more to play for than Celtic in terms of trying to get into the top 6. But Celtic have been better, which is obviously sort of inevitable because they were so poor for a while. Had to get better, but they have been slightly better. So I can see them winning and taking it to Parkhead.
I can see them winning as well, but I think that's my heart speaking, because that's what you know what I mean. Maybe I want Celtic to win that game so we can take it to Parkhead, but then take it to Parkhead, you're setting yourself up to potentially fail as well. But I mean, when was the last time we would have won 3 games in a row at Parkhead? Like, honestly,
well,
I mean, it must have been a long time ago, man. But must have been quite long ago. 3 times in a row at Parkhead. But all we need is a draw anyway. So I don't know. I don't know if I'll be looking the fireworks out just yet. But I mean, anything can happen. Rangers need to win their 2 games as well. But we'll revisit the St Mirren match in the weekend after tomorrow night's game against Livingston. And just to kind of round things off with a mad story, which I feel there's a sense of inevitability to it. And I feel that it's just going to be constant until it eventually happens. But as regards Steven Gerrard to Liverpool, there was a report that claimed Liverpool are eyeing up Steven Gerrard because Klopp could replace Joachim Low at Germany, and obviously Liverpool are going through a kind of bad spell of form, but they've had loads of injuries and stuff, and I don't think there's a chance in hell that Klopp gets sacked because of what he's done for the club. But he might resign, might think that he's taken them as far as he can. But what's your thoughts on those reports this week, James? What did you think when you seen the Gerrard Liverpool thing popping up yet again, and what would it mean for Rangers?
Do you know, I didn't bat an eyelid at it. It's an inevitability. So didn't see there being much point in getting too up or down about it. To be fair, I'll disagree with you on Klopp. I would not be surprised if they binned Klopp at the end of the season, not before the end of the campaign, but at the end of the season, he gets a nice wee payoff to go back to Germany and replace Jogi Löw and go and try and win the World Cup. But this is the Jurgen Klopp kind of cycle. Does well for a bit, falls away, and then buggers off somewhere else. So it's the big thing for me is there was a lot of outrage about a story Keith Jackson wrote in the Record yesterday about increasing Gerrard's contract. Oh crap! And I completely agreed with it. Rangers should be going, what do you want so we can maximise what we get for Liverpool when the time comes that they come and take him away, because they are going to come and take him away. So why make it cheap?
Interesting. What about for you, Jordan? What did you think of the links, and what impact would it have on Rangers?
Yeah, I think there's when it does come, Rangers will need to be very prepared for it in terms of all the work that's gone in, and in terms of the fact that presumably all his coaching staff would go with him and all that. But I think it's kind of doom and gloom and probably unnecessary at this point. For I think he's not going to be at Rangers forever. I think that's a well-established fact, but he's happy. And he's on the verge of success that he's been striving for 3 years, and everyone's been saying that that's the key thing for him. So I think that's the focus at the minute. Klopp, it's surprising to an extent. The injuries have obviously been a massive factor, but they've fallen off so badly. And I think, I saw it at the start of the year, and teams can just get unlikable very quickly, and personalities and stuff around it can get very unlikable quickly. I find anyway, when people are too dominant and winning stuff. It's a bit like Tiger Woods in the golf. I never used to like him when he won everything, but then
it's not a hipstery statement you're making, Jordan.
I've always Liverpool anyway, but Klopp has become
I wasn't supposed to be too deep or anything, but basically, they're winning the league. They obviously romped it. They were absolutely brilliant. And then, Andy Robertson's releasing a book about how they've done it. Jurgen Klopp sharing it on Twitter at the start of the next season. All this, just believing their own hype too much, not focusing on recovering from it, turning things around. And then all we've had for months is Klopp complaining about the fixture list, which, is obviously condensed because of certain things, but it's just a reality, especially in England. So he looks tired to a certain extent. I think he's had some, personal sort of tragedy with his family and stuff recently as well, and that might have an impact. I can't see Liverpool getting rid of him, because I do think he has immunity to a certain extent for a certain amount of time because of that. Such a long wait for them, and then they finally got there. But I can't see him going anytime soon. Long term, obviously it's a role that Gerrard's going to want to get, but I don't think at the minute. I don't even know if they would go to Gerrard straight away now. After it, it's tough to pluck names out of the hat, but it's still fairly early days for him. And I think what we saw with Chelsea and Lampard is that you can get stuck in too early and burn your bridges maybe slightly. That's a guy who is always going to want the job. Lampard's always going to want the Chelsea job. Would have always wanted it if he was coaching for 15 years before he got it. Build up the experience first, I think, maybe before you give him that big role that, maybe he can't come back from if it doesn't go well. So, no, he's been brilliant for Rangers, and it's hard to tell. And I think before Rangers got him, it was going to be like, who on earth are Rangers going to actually appoint who's going to turn this around? And then they did it, and the time will come when people will be like, right, well, who's going to actually kick this on and make sure it doesn't fall away afterwards? But I don't think that time's yet.
The big thing with the Klopp stuff for me as well is see a lot of Liverpool's failings this season. Like, you can't just chalk them up to a team who have kind of reached the end of their, to borrow a Pedro quote, the end of their cycle. A lot of Liverpool failings have been directly attributable to Jurgen Klopp making an arse of it. Like, he sees complaints about the lack of defenders. How many defenders has Jurgen Klopp signed for Liverpool in the last 24 months?
I remember that. He never played them. I can't remember, was it Chelsea?
Signed two boys.
No, Man City game.
Moaned about having no defenders. It's like, well, you can't moan at having no defenders when you don't consign defenders. Like, this is on you. You spent £85 million on forwards and attacking midfielders, and not a penny in your defence that everybody could see last season needed beefed up. And that's kind of part of the reason why I think Liverpool could be more prone to get rid of him. They can see that he can build a team to a certain point, but he can't maintain it. and Liverpool need to maintain it. Liverpool can't afford to be up and down, up and down, up and down. But in terms of Gerrard going there, did you listen to his thing with, I can't remember if it was Carragher or Fowler?
Fowler, I think.
He spoke about not wanting to be a manager for a long time. And he said it a couple of times during his time at Ibrox as well, that he doesn't see himself being one of these bosses who are 70-year-old and still in the dugout.
Roy Hodgson.
Like Roy Hodgson, yeah.
97.
I actually think he specifically gave Hodgson as an example. He doesn't want to be doing that. So, I mean, I can very much, I was talking about it on Twitter with somebody last night, I could see Gerrard retiring by 50. Given that he's 40 just now, you know, he's got a very, very narrow window to get the Liverpool job. If he turns it down now, or at the end of this season, or the end of next season, when does that opportunity represent itself? Because it might not. And it might not at a time where Gerrard gets a good crack at it. So I think if it comes up, he's champing at the bit to go. And who can blame him? I'd have absolutely no grudges if he was to go to Liverpool. If he went anywhere else, I would be spitting feathers. If he I think City or United or Liverpool or Arsenal or anybody else, I would be quite pissed off at it. But Liverpool, no qualms at all, because that's his club.
I don't think any Rangers fans would hold it against him if he went, but I think just from Gerrard's point of view, there's unfinished business at Rangers. Like, I mean, there's only so far he can take Rangers. Right? Let's be honest. He can take us into the Champions League. He can take us into the Champions League. I mean, if he wins the Europa League this season, unbelievable. He takes us into the Champions League, get us consistent winning, etc. And you're talking. I mean, I personally, I think there's another 2 years left of the Gerrard project, and at that point, I think he'd be better equipped and Rangers would be better equipped. But that's my ideal scenario. And obviously, there's situations that might happen at Liverpool. And I tend to agree with you, James, with regards when you're saying that it might not come up again. And that makes me think, I mean, he might only get offered it once and it's his dream job. So it's difficult. I can't see him leaving Rangers for anybody except from Liverpool or maybe the England job if he was offered that.
I mean, I said this a long time ago when Lampard first went to Chelsea on another podcast under a different name, that at the time when Lampard went to Chelsea, Liverpool and England struck me as being one of the few jobs that I could actually see Gerrard leaving Rangers for, because he doesn't strike me as a career manager.
No, I mean neither.
And folk will scoff at this one, but it's very similar to McCoist in that. See, once McCoist had, and regardless of what you think of what he'd done as Rangers manager, once he'd had that job, what else does he want to do? Like, once you've fulfilled your dreams, why do something else that's going to tarnish it? And that's where I think Gerrard does.
But see what's interesting over here. What you're talking about with Gerrard, no want to be a career manager or anything like that. What's interesting is like he might get to a certain point and miss football too much. You know what I mean? But he always talks about the selflessness of his family and that for allowing them to do it, and maybe he wants to spend time with them and stuff. But I'm just happy to have him here now. He's transformed the club, and I mean, obviously, so much work's going into it with different people. You know, everything from the boardroom all the way down to the players and stuff. But he's been the figurehead. You know, like the real thing that's managed to unify all the supporters. He's managed to unify the players, and he's managed to help be like the kind of that is the pin at the top of the arrow that's driven this entire thing forward. And I think when he leaves, he will leave Rangers a legend, regardless of when it is. I hope it's not this summer, because we've got a Champions League to go into, and I think there's a couple of years.
See, just when you're saying that he's got unfinished business,
I think so.
I'm going to make an argument that he's not. When Gerrard came to Ibrox, his job was one thing and one thing only: win the title back.
No, he's made it clear that it wasn't. He's made it clear that making Rangers a force in Europe.
If you listen to what everybody, like King and everyone else says, when the express intention was getting the title back, because
the most important thing, but not the only thing.
We are never going to be a force in Europe. We're not.
But, I mean, we can compete at this level.
But this is the second tier of Europe.
We're going to the Champions League group stages, and then you're talking about reaching that on a regular basis, 2 seasons out of 3.
How much further can he realistically take this Rangers team?
That's what I'm saying. Once he gets there, I think that's it. But Rangers need that financial. Rangers, this can't be a one-season wonder. And I think he says that it was clear that Rangers, Rangers. 2 seconds actually. I think he thought something. Aye, he said he made it clear that the board made it clear to Rangers that to him that he needed to make them strong in Europe because financially it's imperative.
Done.
And if Rangers are going to consistently overtake Celtic, they need at least one qualification for the Champions League, and that is the next target. So winning the title, yes, but it's not the only thing. And if he doesn't qualify for that, I think that's unfinished business to him, I would say.
But then conversely, so if Rangers weren't to qualify for the Champions League next season, would you chalk him up as a failure because he hasn't achieved what we set of him?
No, but it would be a failure. But no, it wouldn't chalk him up over the piece as a failure, but that would be a failure.
Because he got the title.
Because he got the title. It's the most important thing, but it's not the only thing. Anyway, but aye, interesting. Hopefully he doesn't leave. You know what I mean? Rangers fans love him. And obviously Liverpool fans love him too. But maybe I don't know. Maybe something will come to a head in the summer, but I don't think anything will happen before then. But yes, ahead of what is another big week for Rangers. Is there anything else you guys want to add?
No, that's it.
No, all good.
I think
in fact, I'm just going to throw one out here, actually, just in the back of something I wrote the other day, because it seemed to get a bit of reaction. So I'm just want to quickly, because I want to do something on this further down the line, but I just want to kind of quickly get your take on this. Alfredo Morelos, Rangers' best striker since Ali McCoist, yes or no? Just simple yes or no.
Winning things is the big thing, but in terms of just goals and ability, I'd probably agree with that. Maybe Jelavic, Piershaw though, Dado Piershaw, although Jelavic was top notch, but Piershaw never obviously only played a couple of seasons and stuff. So you're talking about at Rangers.
Just in his time at Rangers, in terms of what he contributed at Rangers. I mean, Jelavic, you've only got 18 months out of.
Mm-hmm. I think much of that's unarguable. Boyd never scored at a high enough level and stuff, even if he scored loads of goals. And Morelos is a top ever European goal scorer. Although, I mean, I think that should always be caveated with the fact that he scored hat-tricks against St. Joseph's and all that. You know what I mean?
Farmers and stuff.
This has become one of the biggest myths recently. Who did Ali McCoist score his goals in Europe against?
I went against an era that's a little bit before my time.
If it was against St. Joseph's, I'd be surprised. That was their first game.
The might of Valletta from Malta. Big European guns there.
But there was fewer games. And
McCoy scored 2 goals in the Champions League. Or he scored against Bohemians in the League of Ireland. Big hitters. Elvis Tampere of the Faroe Islands. More big hitters.
I think I agree with you. I think Morelos is the best since voiced. I think that
when people kind of Morelos' record, you can only score against who you put up against.
I mean, to be fair with Morelos as well, it was like obviously that last year in the group stages he was unstoppable against good teams as well. So and I think he still turns up, doesn't he? He was brilliant.
Gornik Zaborze. Anybody know where they're from?
Who? What was it?
Gornik Zaborze.
Slovenia.
Croatia.
Poland, I think.
Oh
well.
Again, another big hitter of European football. As you can see, McCoist scored the big goals in the big games.
I mean, I get that.
The caveats McCoist's European record, so to do so to Morelos would be disrespectful for me.
There's more games, more opportunities to score. I love Morelos. You're not going to find a bigger Morelos fan than me. Morelos is my man. I love him. He's my favourite Rangers player. But I mean,
I think McCoist played more European games as well to get his 21 goals than Morelos did.
He would have, because he played for longer, surely. You'd imagine so. But Morelos is going to fire us to the Europa League, so then this debate will be settled for once and for all. But what about you, Jordan? What do you think of that?
No, I think it's fair. There's other ones, obviously, guys that have scored goals in terms of Boyd and Miller, and then you look at Jelavic in terms of, and then Lovenkrands, guys who are around winning actual trophies. I think that's one thing that, it'd be. I thought that sort of last summer, if Morelos left without winning anything, it'd be a very strange sort of period where he basically carried the team for large periods, but also didn't actually leave with necessarily anything to show for it. Now he's got the European record, the league's on its way, another run in Europe that he could be a big part of. So potentially at the end of the season, you might be able to, just unequivocally say yes. At the minute, it's probably more of an opinion thing, but that might change come the end of the season.
Just to add one last wee bit on McCoist's European record. His was 21 in 54 games. Morelos was 22 in 38.
Strong.
He's a deadly player, man. No, he's good. See, for somebody that isn't even a lethal player.
Away for his goals, that caveat away for his goals record now.
But I mean, so you think Morelos is Rangers' greatest ever European striker?
I think he's the second best striker we've ever had after McCoist.
I think, well, I mean, maybe somebody would say like Mark Hateley or something would be better.
Former
international, played for AC Milan.
That's not his time at Rangers. That's what he done anywhere else is completely irrelevant.
Interesting.
I mean, nobody would go McCoist was shite because he was shite for Sunderland.
Somebody might say that.
But you wouldn't say McCoist. Hateley was better because he was at Milan or whoever else. Purely on his
I mean, I agree with you. I love Morelos. I think he's the top man. I don't think he gets enough credit. It's particularly in Scotland. I don't think he gets. I think we'll miss him when he's gone. Do you know what I mean? But yes, hopefully he's firing again tomorrow night against Livingston. So I think that wraps us up. Anything else?
Yes.
Yes, right, we're going. No worries. Right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I forgot to say this at the start of the video, but if you've managed to make it all the way at the end, please click like, please click subscribe. It is genuinely the difference maker from our channel growing and us getting more time to produce more content and us improving and stuff. So give us feedback, join in the conversation below and let us know what you think. We'll be back later in the week with more news, views and opinions on Rangers. Thank you so much for tuning in and on the Rangers.